Welcome to the Good News Show with me, your host, Professor Grant Schofield. The Good News Show, where we concentrate on news that you can use that has a positive and healthy and helpful effect on having a good life. That's the Good News Show. Up tonight, well, the first breaking news is really a continuation of where we've been in the Good News Show in the past around the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that everyone is eventually, like all other coronaviruses, going to get SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. You're going to get it at some point, guys. So what can you do? Well, you can do what I did. I went and got the vaccine. For my age profile, I guess I felt that the benefits outweighed the risks, and you'll make those decisions about that for yourself, but that's where I've gone. But what else can you do? Well, the good news is you can do quite a lot. And what we should be concentrating on, and I think a few recent papers, actually 6,000 odd recent papers, have come together in one analysis in a paper in the Frontiers of Public Health. And it shows very clearly one thing. The very clear thing is that the glucose in your blood and your control of it massively affects your chances of getting COVID. Why is that? Well, at every level that virus operates, having a high blood glucose makes things worse. So it impairs your innate immune system response to start with. So getting a hold and getting a higher viral load and having a short active response is worse when your blood glucose is higher. There's a synergy with the ACE2 inactivation that the virus has, and glucose makes that worse. It makes you more prone to organ failure. It makes you having more chance of having a cytokine storm and suffering from acute respiratory distress syndrome. It gives you hyperinflammation, and it's pro-coagulation, pro-blood clots. So that sounds like bad news, but the good news is that we can all do something about controlling our blood glucose, and many of us need to. So if that's you out there, here's what you do. You get active, improves insulin sensitivity, brings glucose down, uses up some glucose, particularly some high intensity and resistance training now and then. You eat whole, healthy food low in human interference. If you're particularly prone to something like pre-diabetes or diabetes, then you're probably going to restrict your dietary carbohydrates as well. So the good news is we can do something about this. If you've got diabetes or pre-diabetes or insulin resistance, now's your chance to act. It's great if you have a vaccination, but actually over and above that, one of the most important things you can do is to get your blood glucose down. On the Good News Show, are you a mouth breather? Do you breathe mostly through this hole, or can you close it and breathe mostly through this one? So nose breathing is shown to have some profound, important physiological effects. And the first thing we know, if you breathe in slowly, about 6 breaths per minute through your nose, then you increase your heart rate variability. That sounds bad, but that's in fact good, because the more variable the time between your heartbeats, there's less activation of the sympathetic nervous system, the less stressed out you are. In fact, it's impossible to be stressed out with that sympathetic nervous system activation if you're breathing slowly around 6 breaths per minute through your nose. So get into it. What does that mean for the rest of your body? It also means that you're going to oxygenate your tissues more. When you breathe through your nose, you put up nitric oxide, you kill more viruses and collect more dust and pathogens that are coming in through the air. You warm it up, you increase the carbon dioxide in your blood. That makes it more acid. Again, that all sounds bad, but it's great. It means that the hemoglobin lets go of the oxygen at the tissues more easily. That's called the Bohr effect. That's the beauty of nose breathing. Are you a mouth breather? Are you a nose breather? Here's a little test for you to test how good you are at dealing with those nose breaths and tolerating carbon dioxide in your blood. It's called the Bolt test. You take a few slow, deep nose breaths, and then at the end of one of the out breaths, just hold that breath and time how long it takes till you really feel the pressure to take another breath. Is it 10 seconds? That's pretty poor. Is it 20 seconds? That's getting better. Or can you really hit the top spot and get 30 seconds, which is good evidence that your breath and CO2 tolerance are going really well? The bulk test. Become a nose breather and see how good you can get. But news about breathing, there's a really interesting paper that was published by a research team looking at Wim Hof. Yes, Wim Hof, the Iceman's breathing and cold immersion methods. And it's, I think, more important than ever to think about this. It was around the voluntary control of the innate immune system. They did a randomized trial, and get this for a randomized trial. They divided the group into two. They injected both groups with a poisonous endotoxin that gave them flu-like symptoms. And they looked at whether Wim Hof's method of breathing and cold water immersion could help that. What is his method? Well, it's a pretty simple breathing method. You hyperventilate for a few minutes. Hyperventilation gets rid of carbon dioxide out of your blood. It over-oxygenates it. And then you hold your breath. And that allows you to do the exact opposite. And you go through that breathing pattern of high oxygenation, high carbon dioxide 3 times. And the idea here is that you get some activation of the innate immune system. And this quick voluntary activation is able to deal with the pathogen. And it does just that. It's an astonishing reduction in symptoms. It's an astonishing reduction in post-inflammatory cytokines. This method, as bizarre as it sounds, was a way to get the immune system going and deal with this. And it has more implications than ever now. I'm not saying this is the answer to COVID, but it does demonstrate that you can activate your immune system at will by using your breath. In other news, cold water, bad for you or good for you? It's stressful jumping in cold water, and people have become concerned that jumping in cold water, especially really cold water, might trigger a heart attack or something bad happening to you. But is that stress actually good in disguise? And I think the answer is that it's actually good for you. The idea of becoming stressed has several deep physiological pathways that we know about. And one of the most important ones is the browning and the beiging of fat. So turning the metabolically inactive white adipose tissue into the highly metabolically active brown adipose tissue, and then even just beiging some of that white stuff to make it more metabolically active. And this is the same effect that exercise had. So getting cold, shivering, activating that brown adipose tissue, the stress of this adaptation is hugely important for the body's health and could be really beneficial. Science is starting to unlock this. We need to understand it more. And look at this, just cold showers. And these weren't even that cold. So these were cold showers around 18 to 20 degrees, which isn't warm, but it's not cold. Stimulated not just brown fat adaptation, but also had some really positive effects on the brain and well-being, especially around brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So the thing that drives neuroplasticity and brain health improved. And these were just a couple of minutes at the end of your shower each day. People strangely liked doing it and said they would keep doing it. And in another trial in workplaces, some 3,000 people were asked to do it. And at the end of the trial, half of them said they really enjoyed it and would keep going. So give it a try. Cold showers. Sleep. The big question is, if you're feeling down, why is that? And can you do anything about it? Well, there's a whole bunch of things going on with depression and anxiety, of course. But one of the most overlooked ones is, in the first place, how poor sleeping causes it in the first place. So if you've got apnea, you're overweight and you're having trouble breathing, you're a snorer or a mouth breather. If you're suffering from insomnia, you tend to have things in the middle of the night where you wake up and think about them too much, then maybe you want to think about sorting that out. And it goes the other way as well, of course, and it's a vicious cycle. So the less well you sleep, the more depressed you get, the less well you sleep, and it can spin things down. And so in sleep medicine, we talk about sleep hygiene. And you can go to bed clean if you like, but that's got nothing much to do with it. Sleep hygiene is really about the techniques and practices we use to get a good night's sleep. You'll know these, won't you? Restrict your sleeping window. So go to bed and use it for sleeping. That's what your bed's mainly for. A couple of other activities, but mainly sleeping. And so have that sleep opportunity time, the time when you're in bed and the time you're sleeping matched as closely as possible. Avoid blue wavelength light devices before you go to bed. Be active during the day. Eat a low processed food diet. Get your thinking under control. What do I mean by that? Be able to observe your thoughts, not be your thoughts. That's mindfulness and mindfulness meditation. Here's my favorite technique for thinking about getting to sleep. It's really around the 4, 7, and 8 breath method. So if you're having trouble getting to sleep, breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold the breath at the top for 7 seconds. Let it out gently for 8 seconds. As you're doing that and thoughts come to mind, observe those thoughts. That's the exercise. Let them go. Repeat, repeat. I think most people find within 10 to 20 cycles of that, 4 or 5 minutes are up, their mind's cleared, they're ready for a good night's sleep. It's exactly the same technique if you wake up in the middle of the night and you are ruminating, thinking about things that have happened or might happen, which of course you've got no control over in the middle of the night. Observe those thoughts. Don't be those thoughts. Breathe in gently through the nose. Hold it. Let it go. That's the Good News Show. I'm Grant Schofield. Thanks for listening.